Her triumphs. I took a group of women that didn't believe in themselves, and I just believed in them. Her trials.
I never wanted to go to practice. I was losing a ton of weight.
Her story.
I just put my faith in God and just trusted the system.
Her why.
I want people to see what I did and say, oh, that's so awesome. I'm going to be better than that. That would be how I hope that this journey ends.
This is Her Why, where we tell the stories from BYU women's sports. Here is your host, Lauren McLean.
We're so glad you've joined us for Her Why, where we celebrate the women who make BYU sports great. Joining us now is one of the greatest athletes in BYU history, three-time All-American, BYU Hall of Famer, and recent Jersey honoree, Tresa Spaulding Hamson. Tresa, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
Your jersey was retired and now hangs in the rafters of the Marriott Center. How did you originally find out that was going to happen?
Well, I got a phone call and they just said, hey, we're going to retire your jersey. A few years ago, they kind of made some hints that maybe that was happening, but it just never came about. So my daughter, Heather, she says, hey, Mom, I think they might be retiring your jersey. And I said, okay, great. I was like, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, until I hear from them.
And then they gave me a call and I was like, wow, great. That's fantastic. And then they gave me a date and it was rather quick, like 6 weeks out or something. And so I was like, wow, this is happening. It's happening fast.
Wow. So with everything you'd accomplished in your career, did you kind of expect it to happen? And I know that may come across as like boastful, but it's not, because you had an incredible career.
I kind of expected it to happen. I just, after it had been over 30 years, I was like, well, maybe not,
yeah.
type of a thing. And I was like, it is what it is. And I'm not going to worry about those kinds of things. But when it did happen, Tom and Brian and President Reese, they really did a fantastic job. I was very impressed with the comments that they made and how they respected me as an athlete and as a person and the things that I accomplished on and off the court. And it was very sweet and meant a lot to me. And I wasn't quite expecting that, to feel that loved. But it was a great experience, a wonderful day. I was surrounded by family and friends, and it was just a day that was full of warm fuzzies, I guess you could say. And so it just really made me feel good.
So well deserved. I love that you mentioned you were surrounded by your family and friends and these BYU athletic leaders. What was that like to have your family standing right next to you as you saw that jersey being retired?
It was just a wonderful experience. I think that, I know we've told some of the stories of basketball and everything as far as my kids growing up around women's athletics and stuff like that. But especially Alan, wondering if boys ever play basketball because he only saw girls play basketball. And awesome. My husband had to take him to a men's game. But those kinds of things, they don't always know who you are and what you are in those kinds of situations. And it was good for them to know and understand who I was as an athlete.
Was there a specific moment during that ceremony that really stands out to you in your mind?
I think when we met together, just like in the luncheon, and my kids got to share some moments that they had with me and things like that, and my husband's sharing some stories, and that was a very comfortable environment where we could just reminisce about my career and about who I am in a smaller, I guess, community or just group. And it was very, very touching and very fun to listen to everyone and their stories and, laugh and just have fun. So it was a good day.
So incredibly special. Let's reflect back on what led to your Jersey retirement. You grew up in Meridian, Idaho. Was basketball always your sport, or did you try other sports first?
I was a swimmer.
Okay.
That's what I was doing since I was 8 years old. And I didn't really think about basketball. My parents encouraged me, though, you should try basketball because I was very tall. Mm-hmm. And so I went that direction. I started playing in 9th grade, and I wasn't very good. And I was tall, lanky, uncoordinated, those kinds of things. Swimming did help in that capacity a little bit, but I didn't feel like I was spectacular or anything. Went to Meridian High School and had a fantastic coach that really taught me a lot. And I felt like he taught me a lot of the fundamentals that I needed to learn. And so that was a great experience.
At 6'7", you obviously have the height advantage in basketball, which helps. But you mentioned you felt lanky and uncoordinated when you first started. At what age did you feel like it clicked for you? Like, oh, I'm pretty good at this.
Probably when I was playing professionally, I had a little bit more of a okay, yeah, I'm okay, I'm pretty good. But in college, I actually didn't have all of that confidence that I really would have liked to have had, looking back type of a thing. But I was just competitive, determined, and I played well with more of the thought of I don't want to let my team down.
Yeah.
I don't want to let my coach down. I want to play the very best that I can for them. And that's how I moved forward. And in college, the coach says, if we pass you the ball, then you have to shoot. Because I was kind of timid that way. And so let me go back to high school. In high school, I came into Meridian High School from California. I came to a team that had already won state, and they were already established team, and they were really excited about me being there. A bunch of girls, and kind of like, who is this girl?
Yeah.
And they were really the administration was really, oh my gosh, this great girl, 6'7", she's just really going to help the team. And in fact, the AD goes to the high school basketball coach and says, hey, I got good news and bad news. And he goes, and the good news is we're getting a 6'7" girl, a 6'7" player coming to Meridian High School. And he goes, the bad news is she's a girl. And so he was so bummed because I think their tallest player was like 6'4".
Wow, on the men's side.
On the men's side.
That's crazy.
And stuff. And so that was kind of funny. And so they were already a pretty good team. And so my first year, I'm telling you, those girls would not pass me the ball at all. And so I just rebound and put it back in.
Yeah.
I thought that's pretty much my first year. After that, then they started to trust me a little bit more and realize, okay, she can play, and gave me more opportunities. But it was kind of funny. They
made you earn your stripes.
Exactly.
So I'm curious how tall your parents are. You being 6'7", where did your height come from?
So it came from my mom's side of the family. So my mom is 5'11", but my dad is 5'9". So
what?
And so I have a grandfather who's 6'6".
Okay.
So his side of the family, and an uncle that's 6'10", so height does come from your mom, usually from the female a lot of times. So.
And she's 5'11".
Yeah.
This is amazing. That's so cool. In your BYU Sports Nation interview, you said that after high school, BYU maybe wasn't the best decision for your basketball career at the time. What did you mean by that?
So when I played, BYU wasn't a big school basketball-wise. And I was being recruited by Tennessee, Texas, Maryland. I mean, a lot of the big schools were recruiting me. And all of these coaches I knew because I had played for them or around them on the national team. And so there's a lot of politics in basketball. And I had... I always wanted to play on the Olympics, on the Olympic team and stuff. And so those were kind of some of the goals that I had.
Yeah.
And some of the big coaches basically said that if you go to BYU, you just won't make it that way and stuff. And it's true, unfortunately.
And they weren't wrong.
It's just because even what you see today, if you're in a bigger conference, then you're going to be out there more. You're going to be more in the limelight. People are going to see you. Committees are going to know who you are. And it's all about who knows who you are. And if they don't know who you are, then it's more difficult for you to get on a national team or to play in the Olympics or all of those kinds of things. I went as far as I possibly could with the talent that I had and not the political help.
Right.
And I ended up being an alternate, kind of a little mad about that. You know.
So that you were noticed. You did get noticed.
Yes. I just wasn't noticed enough because I wasn't in a conference that was big enough, and I wasn't on a team that was big enough. And all of those things affect where you go in general. And in bottom line, that is just true or how it is.
Yes,
I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
And I didn't truly and completely understand that going in because I had the misconception that it doesn't matter where you go and where you play. It matters how good you are. And it's just not the case because you can take 100, 150 great athletes and you can pick from them and you can still have a pretty dang good team.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of how it's been. So I'm curious. So in your younger mind, you kind of decided I'm going to BYU anyway, despite what you're all saying to me, right?
Correct. Yeah, I got a lot of pushback on you are so stupid. What in the heck are you thinking? That is, as far as a basketball career, you're messing up big time. And I was looking at 3 different areas. I wanted to go to a school that was closer to my family, and I wanted the religious background.
Yeah.
Those are things that were important to me. And basketball was important to me, but it wasn't the only thing that was important to me. And I made the right decision, even though if you go in the basketball world, they're still going to call me out and say that was a terrible decision that you made. It was a great decision for me. And you have to make decisions that are best for you. And I did it right. Yeah. I have no regrets. I had a great experience at BYU. Overall, I had a great experience in student life. I had a great experience in basketball. I had a great experience with faculty and my schooling. I just really... And my parents were close enough that I could enjoy seeing and they could see me and being with each other. And that was an important part of all of that.
You were where you needed to be.
Correct.
You made an immediate impact as a freshman. You earned All-American honors, setting a single-game block record. Looking back, what was the biggest challenge transitioning from high school to college for you?
It was a faster paced game. For me, it was a lot more physical. Double teams, triple teams, those kinds of things. My freshman and sophomore year, I was surrounded with good players. So they were able to help with that. You know, kind of, I was a newcomer. They didn't know what to expect. And so, and we had good shooters. So the pressure wasn't totally and completely on me when I came in. But I had one of, Valerie Cravens was one of the players on my team, and she was a senior when I was a freshman. And she sat me down and said, "Hey, I'm going for the assist records this year, and if I pass you the ball, you have to make it." And so I took that.
Yes, ma'am.
I took that really, really seriously, and I was just like scared to death and miss. And I probably got a lot of extra rebounds because if I did miss, I would rebound it again and shoot it again just because I was afraid. But I knew I messed up her assist, and I would apologize after every game.
Did she end up getting the record?
I'm sure. Yeah, she was a great player.
That's so awesome. And then your junior and senior years were legendary. You led the nation in scoring your final season. What changed in your game that allowed you to take that next step?
It just ended up, actually my junior and senior year were a lot harder because we were a very young team. So my junior year, I was the only junior. And so we had a few sophomores and a lot of freshmen. And so it was a lot of learning and a lot of growing, all of us together and trying to mesh as a team. And then pressure. I had a lot of pressure, you know, on me to score. And I did the very best that I could. Thank goodness Kathy Nixon was a junior, or came in, I guess. And so she helped in that capacity. She was a very great player and scored as well. So you kind of have to have, if you're a post, you have to have a lot of good players for you to do well.
Yeah.
And kind of offset. If it's only me, you really can't do it.
Right.
And stuff. So
it'd be 5-on-1.
Exactly.
That never works out well.
So
You once scored 50 points against New Mexico State and then followed it up with a 47-point game at Utah State. What stands out to you about those nights? Do you remember them very well?
Oh, I remember the game I scored 50 points because we lost.
Oh, really?
Yes, we lost by 1, and I just was...
You're like, there's nothing else I could do.
I mean, I was devastated because it was just so frustrating, type of a thing. So that one I remembered. It actually, got yelled at a little bit. But
really?
Yeah.
By who?
Oh, the coach. Yeah. He was just so upset and stuff, and just in the moment it wasn't that big a deal, but it is what it is. But I just remember getting yelled at. And I'm just like thinking, I scored a lot. At the time, I don't remember how much I scored, but I was like, I think I did pretty good. Why am I why am I in trouble?
Why are you yelling at me?
And stuff. But I think that was kind of how it was then too, because he had lost some of his veteran players and a lot of it came down on me. And so sometimes this in athletics, that's how it goes. If you're one of the better players, you either get the limelight or you get the blame. Right. And there's no in between. And I think that's probably a little bit why I didn't really consider myself as fantastic sometimes, because I was getting a lot of the blame as well. And I mean, I knew I was good, but I didn't think of myself as great. Yeah. And I think it was only me looking back after years of, okay, I did do pretty good. I did accomplish a lot, and I did do better than I thought I did when I was actually a player. So, how did that mentally affect you? I mean, looking back, can you see how it affects you besides, I guess, kind of even your self-confidence? How were you able to hang in there with all that pressure on you? I really don't know. It's probably a little bit like being a mom, right? Yeah, right. You just do it. You just do it, and you just keep plugging, and you do the very best that you can. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how I did it. I just kept pushing forward. But we just lost more my junior and senior year, and it was hard. And it wasn't, I went from high school and never lost a game, and then came into a good team for a couple of years. And then my junior and senior year, we just struggled more because we were a young team. And we had already got bigger schedules. I don't know if you totally and completely understand how it works, but sometimes like you'll play a good team and then you'll agree that they'll come to your place, or you'll switch that around. And so we were still playing good teams, but we weren't quite as powerful as we were before. And so it makes it a little more difficult. But that's what you need to do. I mean, just like right now, the women's team getting into the Big 12, wow, it's so important that they play good teams, and then they're just going to get better and better. And we really had some great games this year where we just lost by just, I mean, I just wanted them
so close
to win a few of them, a few more than they did. But those are the experiences that you need. You need to be playing good teams, and you need to know, hey, I can play with these good teams, and then start to understand and start to learn how to win against the good teams.
Yeah.
And I think it's a process, and it takes a little bit of not only playing well, but mentally putting your head around that I am good enough to do that. And you kind of have to learn to win.
Yeah.
It's a process, not just good skills and putting those good skills together and implementing them, but believing that you're capable, and as a group, if we work together, that we can accomplish great things. And that's what you need. You need a coach that can believe in her players and encourage them to find ways to win.
Yeah.
And it's not only being good, and you can't win with just one good player.
Right.
You have to really have multiple.
Yeah.
And I can't remember which team I was watching the other day, but they were so deep. I mean, this team, they played 10,
Yeah.
and in college to play, 10, 12 players, that's huge.
Which on the men's side, they do that at BYU as well.
Yeah.
Very deep.
Very deep. And that ingrains a unity and a purpose standard of, hey, we're all important, we're all needed, and when I'm called up, I got to perform.
Yeah.
And that mentality helps to grow the win.
Yeah.
Because they know that they're all important, not just 6 or 7 of them, that they all matter. Because a team is like 15-ish more,
right.
Sometimes 17 players. And if you're always on the bench and only practicing, you can do that for a while, but it doesn't go well for long periods of time, so it's difficult.
Well, it's like you mentioned, you're not learning to win if you're not given that opportunity. And we're going to get into this a little later, but you have had such a unique opportunity and insight to the BYU basketball program with Jennifer and Sarah and now Heather, that's got to be sometimes difficult for you to just take a step back, right? And more be a fan instead of a coach, because you know so much. Has that kind of been difficult watching your daughters sometimes and maybe just being a fan, if that makes sense?
Oh yeah. Was, still is. All of the things.
Oh, I love it.
Type of a thing. I think Jennifer was the most difficult for me to step back, and 2 things happened early on in her college career that helped me to be a better mom and less coach. One was her telling me to step back, and then the next one was one of the coaches saying, hey, we got this. Your role is more cheerleader. You need to be more of the, hey, you're doing good, and things like that. But Jennifer still, not in college, but in high school, would still talk to me and say, hey, I'm playing this really good team. There's another good post. Tell me some moves I could use.
Yeah.
And she would listen and then do. And it was
awesome.
crazy how well she would take something that I would tell her and implement it into the game. And so, because I'm a post and I raised posts. And so it's kind of nice that they would come to me every once in a while and say, hey, what do you think about this? And what do you think I should do here? And things like that. And those were great things. I still was not very good, just so you know, at separating the two, being the coach and being the mom.
Right. Well, I can't imagine how hard that would be.
So that was difficult.
With everything you've accomplished and done, and you have so much to offer, to have to just kind of be a cheerleader, like you mentioned. That'd be so difficult. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll hear more from BYU legend Tresa Hamson about her time with Team USA, playing professionally in Europe, and what it's been like watching her daughters carry on the family legacy. This is Her Why. This is Lauren McLean. Last season on Deep Blue, we heard inspiring stories from many amazing BYU athletes, coaches, and personnel, including BYU quarterback Gary Bohannon, who's from a small Arkansas town, and how he went from Baylor to BYU and what it's like playing for his son. BYU quarterback Jake Retzloff talks about how one class prevented him from beginning his playing career as a UTEP minor and what it was like playing his last 4 games under tough conditions. Join us for this season, where you'll find more great Cougar stories, including football players Tyler Batty, Darius Lassiter, Chase Roberts, and Hinkley Ropati. And BYU basketball head coach Kevin Young talks about how getting fired was a pivotal moment in his life and his journey to BYU. Catch Deep Blue on the BYU radio app or wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back to Her Why. I'm Lauren McLean, and we're here with BYU basketball legend Tresa Spaulding Hamson. So you had the incredible opportunity to represent the United States at the World University Games in 83 and 85. What was that experience like for you?
I have really fond memories of the national team. Probably one of the biggest things that it gave me opportunities to travel, being a child of a teacher, didn't have a lot of money, and it was just great to kind of see the world that way. And then in Canada, when we went to Edmonton, Canada, there's like the Olympics, there's the opening ceremonies. And it was just amazing. I mean, we're in this big football stadium and walking in, representing the United States, and just the crowd going crazy. It was just a really great experience. And then just imagine after all of that, we're just in this big field and all athletes, just from all different countries, and we were just trading pins. It was just like so fun, and I just really enjoyed getting to know other players from other countries and other teams and cultures, and I don't know, those are really fond memories for me. And I don't know, this story is probably giving away my lack of listening to the news and knowing what's going on in the world. But when I was in the athletic village at the University Games when I was in Canada, some famous people came through, and one of them stopped and talked to me, and we carried on a conversation, and he was really, really nice, and I thought, oh, that's really cool that he came over and he shook my hand and he talked to me. And then later on, I found out that it was Prince Charles.
No way.
Stuff. And I was like, I don't know who this person is. I don't know who this famous person is.
No way.
But I was just like, oh, he's nice.
Oh my gosh. What did you do when you found out who it was after the fact?
Oh, that was when my dad just, reprimanded me. What the heck? I can't believe you didn't know who that was.
Future king. Oh my gosh.
So it was just kind of funny. And Princess Diana was also there, but she didn't really say much. She just kind of stood in the background.
She was standing there while he was talking to you?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. But
what an incredible experience. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun.
You're like, these are some really nice people.
Exactly.
See you guys. That's so crazy. You talked about this a little bit. You were an alternate for the 84 U.S. Olympic team. A little bitter about it, right? So what do you remember about the tryout process? Was there a tryout process or did they select you? What was that like?
I mean, there was a lot of good players that they had to choose from.
Yeah.
And I was just really, really wanted that. And I was just really, really disappointed. Wasn't very nice to my dad after the fact and stuff, just upset and grumpy and everything. And he calmed me down. And then I remember later on in my career, one of my good friends, Scott Johnson, in high school, he also went and played professionally overseas when I was playing overseas. And he made the comment to me that put everything in perspective for me, as far as at that time, I was had tunnel vision and was totally and completely focused on my goal and what I wanted. And what he reminded me of is that, Tresa, very, very, very few people in the world have gone as far as you have and have experienced as much as you have. And I'm sorry that you didn't make the Olympic team, but you've played professionally. You've had a great college career. You did well in high school. And so sometimes when you have a goal and you just want it so bad, you don't think about all the other things that you have accomplished. And that probably goes down to the confidence that I had. I just was competitive and wanted something so bad that I didn't realize that all of the good things that I had already accomplished. And so that helped me to feel a lot better about myself. That, I am a good player. I did do great things. I didn't accomplish this goal, but I accomplished a lot. Yeah. And so it just made me feel a lot better overall.
Some of the best athletes, I feel like, have that tunnel vision, though, of their goals. Yeah. But even though, you got to have that balance of being able to be grateful for everything that led you to that point. After college, you played professionally in Europe. What was the biggest difference between European basketball and what you were used to playing?
It was backwards. So it was a step down.
Really?
So, So what you were used to in college, because all of the great athletes are in the States. Yeah. so you just think of going back to high school now, and then being a really good player playing with people that aren't as good as you, and their skills are more on the high school level, and you're on the college level. The competition wasn't as high. I mean, I was scoring and stuff, averaging probably between 30 and 50 points a game, Gosh. So this
is too easy.
And that wasn't the problem, other than every time now you're playing for money. So when and it wasn't, I just called him the money man. There was the coach and there was the money man. So the money man was always saying, "Oh, good job. You scored 40 points. Next time for 50 points, he's like, more, type of a thing." And I'm just like, well, it just
like
depends.
You're a clown in a circus, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it depends a lot more on that than what you're capable of doing, game situations. But
was that ultimately one of the bigger reasons that made you want to move on from professional basketball?
I moved on from professional basketball because I met a husband, a man, decided to get married. But because, would you like to tell the
Yes,
story?
I want to know that story. How'd you guys meet?
So we met at BYU, and I, at the time, was planning on going back overseas to play. And I had like 3 or 4 contracts in the mix. And I met David in Provo, and I was happy to date him, but I didn't want to give him false ideas that I said, because I was leaving in September, and this was like in June. And so I didn't really want to like start something and not be able to finish it type of a scenario. And so I let him know. I said, yeah, I still am planning on playing professionally. And so he really was a persistent guy. And he was just like, well, let's see if we can make it work, and maybe I'll, he had a full-time job, and maybe I could go over once or twice during your season, and da-da-da. So we were talking about things like that. And then Floyd Johnson at BYU told me that I should stop playing. He said, hey, you've had 2 great careers, 2 years playing professionally, and now your next step in life, in the big picture, is to get married. And so I thought about that, but I was like, yeah, I really would rather play, type of a thing. And then all 3 of those contracts fell through. Wow. And I was like, okay, maybe this is just what I need to do. Wow. And so I married the boy.
You ultimately chose the boy over basketball.
Yes.
He's also very tall. Did you ever consider finding somebody taller than you to marry? Was that even...
Oh, very much a hope and a dream.
Yeah.
But I have been dating boys 6'4", or 6'4" is probably the shortest guy I dated. And I didn't date a ton. But it was just kind of, I didn't expect that, but I was hoping for that, and it just worked out.
Well, you had a beautiful family together with your husband, David. Watching your daughters play at BYU had to have been a really cool full circle moment for you. Seeing Jennifer, Sarah, and now Heather wear the same uniform that you once did. How would you kind of sum up the feeling of watching your daughters be BYU Cougars and play a game that has meant so much to you?
It's been a great ride. It's been very enjoyable. Jennifer was a great athlete in volleyball and in basketball, and we were able to follow her in some of her big experiences. She went Sweet 16 for basketball, and she made it all the way to the championship game for volleyball. So those kinds of experiences, it just reminded me of being on the national team and brought back a lot of those emotions as far as going and playing in big stadiums and big crowds and big games and winning. Yeah. What a great experience there for her and for us as a family to watch that. And Sarah, one of the things that we did do with our children is their senior year, we tried to go to all of their games. So away games and home games. Normally we would try to go to all of the home games, but we made an extra effort their senior year to go to all of the away games as well and stuff. Heather and Sarah were a little bit more spoiled because David was in a better financial situation, so we were able to go to more away games than normal type of a situation. And Heather's the baby, probably the most spoiled in that capacity.
It's kind of how it goes.
But no, we've really enjoyed I had been a part of basketball after I got married. Even we did stats for the women's team until Jennifer started to play, and then they wouldn't let us and
Really?
stuff. And so, and I think we helped the blocks to get more recognition in the women's game because we were there, and I was able to record blocks. You know, they do and still do a rather poor job of recording blocks.
Interesting.
In my opinion, in the women's athletics. But so you know, it was just a lot of fun to watch my girls play and just experience and share the emotions of basketball in just with my girls.
Yeah.
And see them shine and do well and all of the above.
I love that all three of them chose that path too. That's pretty incredible.
I didn't think that was what was going to go down, but it did happen that way. In fact, I didn't push that way, and they still chose. So I guess
cool.
that's pretty awesome.
I'm curious, if you picture yourself in your prime playing at BYU, do you think you could school all three of your daughters?
Yeah. So we steered away from that on purpose.
Playing against each other?
Yes.
Still got that competitive nature in you?
Yes. And yes, I decided I wanted to be a mom and not a basketball player.
Yeah.
And there is a lot to say about that as far as, and some kids were better at me being the coach and being the mom with them. Some of them just wanted me to be more the mom, and some of them were like, no, I want you to be the mom and the coach.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And so
You let them choose.
Yes. And Jennifer didn't prefer me being the coach, and Heather was probably the most accepting of me being the coach.
Okay.
And stuff.
Which is fun.
Yeah.
It happens to be the baby. You're like, I'm out of practice, though, because the first two didn't want me to do this. Oh, I bet you were incredible. I'm here with Tresa Spaulding, Hamson, BYU basketball legend. Tresa, thank you so much for taking the time with me today. You're incredible, and it's just been so much fun.
Thanks.
Thanks to Annie Robinson and Sydney Simpson for producing this episode with senior producer Cleon Wall. Her Why is a production of BYU Radio.